today I am so excited about the assembly or the presentation or the dance or the entertainment, whatever you want to put it, that we have here for you today. And those of you who have lived in Olympia a while may have seen this, is it a troupe? Yeah, it's true. Maybe dance at Procession of Species and other events. And they are here today to dance and perform to us. And this is Samba OlyWa. So give a round of applause to Samba OlyWa. Okay. Thank you. And I will now hand over the microphone to Carol, who is going to introduce today's presentation. Thank you.
Hi kids, my name's Carol. Can you guys say hi Carol? Hi Carol. Can you guys all say Samba OlyWa? Samba OlyWa. Do you know what OlyWa comes from? No. Olympia, Washington. Olympia, Washington. OlyWa. How about that? So now you learned something new today at school you can tell your parents about tonight. Our group meets on Sundays to practice, and anybody can join us as long as they're an older teenager or an adult. And we operate on donations and a grant from Inspire Washington, which is to help bring music, art, culture, and heritage to kids like you. I hope other groups have been here to share their stuff. Speaking of schools, in Brazil, which is in, anybody know what country? Or what, not what country. Brazil is in South America, and it has samba-style music, and there are samba schools where some schools even allow kids ages 5 or older to participate. So that means all of you could go to regular school and samba school. Samba, as we know it today, came into being during the early 20th century. At that point in history, Brazil was a big mishmash. You know what a mishmash is? A mixture of various peoples and cultures. There were, of course, the indigenous people who had been there since before recorded history and began with their own musical traditions. The Portuguese, do you know where Portugal is? In Europe, arrived in the 1500s, that was a long time ago, and brought with them the music and instruments of Europe. The Portuguese also had African slaves at the time, and they brought the African people with their traditions and rhythms from West Africa to what was called the New World. Brazil has the unfortunate history of sharing slavery with our country. Brazil became independent from Portugal in 1822. That was like 300 years later. But the Portuguese, many who stayed and settled in Brazil, were proud of their military might and enjoyed parading around with big drums and other loud instruments. The instruments are loud, and it's okay to hold your ears if you have to when we're playing. Most of this was probably to remind regular Brazilians that they, the Portuguese, were large and in charge. People listened to the military bands and the big drums and thought, wow, that's a great sound, but it needs to have a better groove. Rhythms from indigenous Brazil, Africa, and Europe all found their way into this new music. The big drums from Portugal, the smaller drums and shakers and bells from Africa, and the indigenous Brazilian people's maracas, rattles, and drums were soon incorporated into musical bands, and samba, as Samba OlyWa plays it, like hundreds of other bands around the world came into being. Samba dancing has African roots and steps that has part of a circle of dancing. I'm sure you've all seen dancing in circle. With new samba rhythms, more steps and dancing styles were created throughout the different regions of Brazil. Samba costumes, voila, started in Italy. And they had a costume contest every year at the beginning of Lent. The tradition spread throughout Europe, and who else but the Portuguese brought the tradition of dressing up in costumes to Brazil. Today, Samba is playing for you a couple of Samba reggae mashup, mix mosh of Samba and reggae, reggae being one of the most popular rhythms in the whole world, and Samba reggae style comes to us from northern Brazil. We hope you enjoy it, and again, if it's loud, you can just cover your ears. Thank you.
there. Hey, thank you so much. That's our samba reggae style. Then we have one that we're calling 6/8, which has got more of the African influence. Wow, thank you so much for being here. It's really fun to play and dance for you all. We'd like to take a moment to show you some of the instruments. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to play actually the first groove we did, and we're going to solo the sections. And so that means, like, when you do a solo, you play by yourself for a moment, and then everybody else comes back in. So this is what we're going to do. The Agogo. Agogo. On the far end, we have a Hepanique. That's also what I have. Then we have the snare drums, or Kaisha. And on this side, we have our tambourine. And we are playing the upbeats. The Surdus. These are the parade drums from the military bands. Feel that in your chest, yeah. Wow, you guys have been so great. Thank you so much for letting us come and play for you and dance. We'd like now to show off one of our more recent grooves. This is more North American feel. We call it hip hop. And if you like, we'd like you to stand up. And if you can move with us, the dancers will show you what they know, and you can show us what you know. All right, here we go, the hip hop.
We would love to have all of you join us and dance with us. Thank you for having us.
fantastic. Thank you so much for letting us come here. Our last one is you can do, it's a call and response. I do something and you do it. It's going to be, the answer is going to be, okay? So I'm going to go ba da da ba, and then you go.